Welcome to the Are You Being Real show. I am sitting with my dear friend, the one and only Samuel Ian Rosen. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, you are a true change maker, so I'm thrilled to have you on this podcast. And for everyone tuning in, Mr. Samuel Ian Rosen has started multiple companies. So you are the founder of Tap, and you're on the mission to end single-use plastic water bottle usage. Thank you. You're also the founder of MakeSpace, where you completely redefine the storage industry. You are on the board of Gift of Life, and you are an angel investor. So I'm thrilled to have you on the show today. And what this show is all about is really taking a look at societal conditioning and purpose and some of like the more challenging things about being a human and why we do what we do, and kind of figuring out what our individual and collective roles are in the world. So I feel like you're the perfect guest to have on the show. And I just wanted to invite you to share your Am I Being Real story.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I'm excited to share. Tell more.
Awesome.
Where would you like to begin?
So yeah, I'd love to start these shows with inviting the guest to open up and share a story of maybe something that you struggled with as a kid that has turned out to be something that has really fueled and empowered you as you've grappled with it and worked through it as you become an adult and found your purpose and your role in the world.
Yeah. I've always been kind of a pretty average boy from northern New Jersey. I grew up on a lake playing ice hockey.
Nice.
And when I was young, I went through my first traumatic event related to my family. Our family was doing quite well. My parents ran a pharmacy. And my dad was involved in what at the time was a ring of people who, really unbeknownst to them, were involved in a much larger scheme of some type of fraud. I don't remember a lot of it, and I really don't think it's that relevant to the conversation, but my dad was kind of like caught up in something much bigger than him, and he spent a year in federal prison. And, you know, it removed a father figure from my life at a crucial time of childhood development, 7 years old for me. And also the guilt and the shame that comes with an incarceration hang over me for many years. It was difficult as a kid because my dad wanted to get a job. The felony that, look, we see this in today's political climate, like what people are literally getting away with. He did something far less worse than what any Wall Street banker did, but it was petty compared to that. But the system's rigged against people. And one of the problems too is if you convicted of a nonviolent felony, if you're convicted of a felony, you can't you lose certain rights in this country. And one of them for many years was this concept of checking the box. When you'd apply for a job, check the box if you're convicted of a felony. My dad's was nonviolent, but he'd still have to check this box, same box that people who have violent felonies have to check. That means so many job opportunities were withheld. And with, incarceration being one of the major problems, systemic incarceration being one of the major problems in this country, what I didn't know that I experienced then is something that many in the African-American community have been experiencing for years. So my eyes as a 33-year-old man are open to this in a very different way than I was a kid. At the same time, that pressure of not being able to get a job weighed on my father. He went to car sales, which was one of the few jobs he could get without a certification, right? And then he had a heart attack. So now I'm a 16-year-old boy, and my father has a heart attack on the way driving back from moving my brother into university, his first, over like Thanksgiving or something, helping move some stuff. So I went through two traumatic events with my father when I was 7 and about 15. That creates in a child is fear. Because I can see periods of my life before my father went away to prison and before he had his heart attack, I can understand what states of fear and abundance feel like, because I know what it feels like to have daddy there And I know what it feels like to have daddy gone. I know what it feels like to have daddy alive. And I know what it looks like to have daddy lying on a hospital bed with a tube up his thigh. And those states of appreciation were created in me at a very young age in very, very, very traumatic ways. And for many years, I think I struggled to understand how they actually impacted me in professional life and personal life. Because living in that state of fear of what I was used to made me and drove me in some ways to go at things so much more by myself and alone, which means I moved fast. But what I missed out on was I didn't move together with other people. I would go much further with others, but I had this fear of working with others because the person in my life who was most close to me was removed twice.
Right. So the fear that they might go away.
Yeah. And that fear of losing my dad would, I think, most notably transfer into personal relationships and professional relationships. Personal relationships, if you had one date with someone and it didn't go well, there's the fear of attaching on. In a professional relationship, I work in venture and investing with venture capitalists. Like, the venture investor wants to chase you just as much as you want to chase them. So I'd latch on too quickly to what the beginning of a venture relationship might look like. So really, my story of being real is being exposed to two wildly, life-changing events as a very young child related to my father. And I think so many people have to work through understanding what those events are as they go on their journey, and then also evaluate what they do with that growth, that personal development growth, if they can get to the other side of that growth. And then what it means to share that growth with others who I can easily relate with.
Sure. I can totally relate to your story, and I know everyone who's tuning in, we've all had traumatic events that we've experienced, especially in our childhood, that have really formed us. And sometimes, I know for me personally, I didn't even realize how big of a hold or how many limitations came as a result of those traumatic events. And mine look a little bit different. I think my traumatic events, I can trace them back to a couple conversations that I had with my dad or my relationship with my brother, and just what I thought my role was in the world. And I've talked about it at length on this show about kind of having an inferiority complex because I had a big brother who'd always jump in front of me and show me the ropes. And then for so many years, I would just always think that there was somebody smarter and more capable in every room. And I would kind of wait for other people to take the lead as a result of it versus really being even in touch and in tune with what I stand for and having the confidence to take the lead to put it into action. So it didn't happen until I was about 30 years old to start realizing that I was still living as a 30-year-old man based on things and ideas and beliefs that served me as a 10-year-old.
Right.
So, that has allowed me to get to this point and to start this podcast and to speak openly about this. So I know that there's a lot of value in that as well. So when I hear your story, and I can just imagine, obviously I didn't walk in your shoes, but I can imagine how terrifying that must have been, having experienced that as a young kid. And then how that drove you in terms of the fear of, not knowing if the people around you are going to be there or taken away, and frustration, I'd imagine, as well, as to how the world works and how that affected you and how that drove you. And I also know there's two sides to every coin. So I'm curious to know as well how this experience, how you feel like, now having gone through that, how that's actually maybe served you in a positive way.
I truly believe that everything happens for a reason. And the first is it drove me immensely to be innovative and creative. My father, what I learned from him was a resourcefulness. When we didn't have money because he was on house arrest, he made our books covers. At the time, other people were buying plastic sheets to cover the book. He made them out of reusable paper bags. He made our lunches out of Tupperware, and packed into Tupperware, as opposed to having me buy lunch from school. he would cook meals at the beginning of the week and put them in the fridge or the freezer so that we didn't have to eat, fast food every night or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That also gave us an appreciation. And, I think also in this new world of interconnectivity, my father, who spent a year in prison, my fondest memories with him were never in the house. They were in nature. They were on lakes and in mountains. Because someone who was caged up for really not the right reasons, I think they understand and appreciate what freedom means.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that was instilled in me, that I'm grateful for my laptop that allows me to work anywhere. I'm grateful for my toilet and the running water. And I'm grateful for the lakes that I can skate on or the oceans that I can swim in, because not everyone can go outside and do any of those three things. Not everyone has that.
It's a beautiful mindset. And I know gratitude, there's actually studies that the more grateful and appreciative and thankful we are, actually the happier we'll be. Actually, there's a direct correlation between gratitude and thankfulness and happiness. So that's absolutely beautiful. And I know something as well, that going through a tough time, you could have easily, been frustrated with the course of the world and use that as an excuse to fuel your anger for maybe even the rest of your life, in terms of maybe hatred for society or just frustration or hate for others. But you've actually gone about that in a completely different way and are a change maker, which, with all your companies and everything you stand for, you're a walking example for the change that you want to see in the world. So I think whenever we have traumatic events that happen in our lives, there is the opportunity to be a victim to those events and let those things hold us back as to what we think we're we're capable of and what's possible. Or we can use those as launch pads and opportunities to maybe create things that we never saw possible before the traumatic event or when we were going through it. So I think that those type of traumatic events, they really create an amazing opportunity for growth and opportunity.
I saw that with my mother, because she had 3 kids, husband in jail. What do? You just go, woe is me, I give up, get me a Xanax, I'm going to sit on the couch? Or are you like, well, I guess I'm going to go get 2 jobs?
Yeah.
That's what my mom did.
Wow. What an example. So
that's
inspiring.
Right. And, like my father said, it was like, I'm sure they had conversations then, and it was like, you go tell them it's going to be okay, and you pick your ass up and you get 2 jobs. That's, I'm sure that they went, who knows, but they figured it out. Yep. I've been married, I think, almost 38, 40 years, but it was like, it's why part of what I've also done on the investing side is I've invested in women-led companies, from Daily Harvest to City Row to Dia, because I had a strong mom. I had a really savvy, smart, cunning, sharp, great with numbers, stylistic. I had a really woke mother at the time. And, we talk about, in the political world, Hillary Clinton breaking a glass ceiling. My mom was breaking glass ceilings 30 years ago.
Wow.
And that's how I look at it, is that this divine rising has started many years ago by a variety of social things. And we're in this new age. And, I was a kid. My dad was, quote, Mr. Mom. He was on house arrest.
Right, yeah.
My dad was Mr. Mom. And my gratitude is I learned to cook. I did my own laundry. I was a man that took care of myself, because I saw that from my dad.
Yeah, right.
I saw that from my dad, not from my mother.
Wow. I want to dive into Tap, because it's such a timely and important subject matter. I know people are probably seeing it in the news more often about plastic, single-use plastic water bottles starting to be banned, and the damage that's happening in the oceans, and how it's affecting the political climate as well. So I'd love to invite you to share with us what TAP is, and to be completely real about what's happening right now and what we should be aware about, because it's really easy to be ignorant or just to look at what's happening in the news. So I'd love to get your real take on what's going down.
How real can we get here?
As real as you want to get.
We've been lied to. We've been taken advantage of. The water fountain. The symbol of literally what once divided us no longer exists. Maybe on a college campus. But when's the last time you saw a water fountain? Maybe the beach. And they're gross.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I remember as a kid using them all the time.
That's right.
But now, no.
And at the same time, Coke, Pepsi, and Nestle, their high fructose corn syrup sugary drinks, we don't want anymore because they make us obese because of the terrible stuff in them.
Mm-hmm.
They're buying up our water. And they're bottling it up. Most of the bottled water business is tap water. And they're literally just selling it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
At thousands of times markup.
Yeah.
And we're buying it.
Yeah.
And we're manufactured to believe that it's convenience for us.
Right. Or that it's better, it's cleaner.
Or that it's cleaner or better, or you're sexier if you have a Voss bottle or a Fiji. Like, what?
The status attached.
The status to water.
Yeah.
And what I made was a simple observation.
Yeah.
That when I went through the airport with my Hydro Flask and I filled up at the water fountain and it didn't taste that good.
Yep.
It was probably just because the filter hadn't been changed. When I wanted to rate the water filter, to be like, actually, it doesn't taste good, I opened Google Maps and I noticed when I searched for water fountain that I couldn't find water on the map. So what I realized was, I don't think people drink bottled water out of convenience. I think people drink bottled water out of inconvenience. They can't find water. And when I was at Burning Man earlier this year, I was, in my virtual, whatever, Burning Man world, riding around on my bike, and I ran out of water. And when I ran out of water, I'd walk into other camps, but I had to be polite. Like, you just, at Burning Man, you don't walk in and go, who's got water here? Like, you gotta
build relationships,
be nice, give gifts. Like, you don't just roll in hot and be like, I need some water. So I walked in, I went to the first camp. They didn't have any water. They were out. Went to another camp. I realized how many camps were out of water. I had to go to the rescue station. And I went up to them and I said, can I get some water, please? They're like, you're not supposed to come here. Like, this is that's part of the festival, is to go figure out how to get water. Right. I was like, no, but this is actually a problem. Like, I can't find clean drinking water and I'm about to pass out. Like, help me out. And when that happened, I took myself for however many days, 4 to 7 days of being there, I took myself out of the routine that I was in where I took clean water for granted. And I realized, piecing those components together, that what I wanted was a treasure map for where water is. And as long as I have this cup, I can find a place to fill up my cup with that clean water. It's just a simple concept.
Yep.
When I started to understand the beverage business, Coke, Pepsi, Nestle, what I didn't really understand was the bottling business. The Coke, Pepsi, and Nestle used to be, they had local distributing centers where they would fill up the local water, use their flavoring, and then sell it to you nearby. 2 inventions, 2 technologies, plastic and high fructose corn syrup, allowed them to centralize operations, growing a bigger plant, not needing those distributed facilities anymore. And they centralized, shipping their plastic bottles around the world with their Coke, and then obviously the water business, because they got the shelf space for that now. But if you can find a source of unpackaged beverages, If you can introduce a marketplace that says, whoa, 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 the user already has the cup, the drinker already has the cup. We're just selling unpackaged liquids in bulk. You can remove a huge percentage of the cost from the equation. Mm-hmm. On a bottle of water, the estimates are between 60 and 65%, for example, are packaging and transportation. They got to make that plastic bottle somewhere else, ship it to the source, ship it to you, etc. Yeah. What if we can decentralize, again, the bottling company? Well, in Pepsi's example, what's that to them? Or Coke's example, what's that to them? That's to say, okay, you used to have a bottling plant. Then you had a factory of like centralization. But now you've got 28,000 Coca-Cola freestyle machines out there at the movie theaters, at Jack in the Box, that literally are just a big machine that you can just go up and fill up and you can slide. And if I want the Coke, I'll pay $1. And if I want this one, I'll pay 50 cents. But if I want the water, I just want to fill it up for free. Yeah. And businesses like Jack in the Box will give that away for free. No problem, to get you in the door because you might buy a hamburger. Yeah. By decentralizing the bottling company, we will revolutionize the beverage industry and consumer packaged goods. Because when you look under the sink and you see your soap and your shampoo and your dish, it's all a plastic bottle, a little bit of flavoring, or chemicals, and water. I want to completely change the consumer packaged goods market to the consumer unpackaged goods market.
So how does Tap work?
There's two sides to make this work. The first is you have to have people carrying their bottles. Mm-hmm. And the second is you have to have a way to find where those stations are. Let's talk about step 2 first. That's like a search engine. When I realized that water with that Google fountain wasn't on the map, I realized that water is not on the internet. So let's put water on the internet. The team that we have built a upload tool where you take a picture of a water fountain and that marks a GPS location. That puts water on the map. Yep. Bars and restaurants we walked into and said, would you give out a free glass of water if someone came in? Yes. Sweet Green, Umami Burger, can't remember all. Shake Shack. Okay. Yeah. Yes, I can fill up here. Yep. 38,000 of those types of locations are now available all around the world. And the way we grew mostly in the developing world is there's even what's called a water ATM. A water main hooked up to a water filter where someone pays per use to fill up their bottle. Yep. We see them all over. Reverse osmosis machines on the street to just clean water. In Kenya, we've seen them in India and all over the developing world. So on the search side, we have a map, information on an iPhone or an Android, but we can also provide that via what's called an automatic programming interface, an API, to provide that information into other maps. So for example, if you are a Lyft driver and you're driving around all day, you need to use the restroom. Right. Finding where a free glass of water is really useful. New York City has signposts, just like at Burning Man. I wish there was a sign that said free water 50 feet that way, and I would have stopped to get the water. Right. We can use that signpost digitally to provide information where the stores are around near, where the water stations are nearest to it. Yeah. And now you don't even need to download an app. You just need to walk down a New York City street and see a billboard ahead of you and know where the water is there. So we want to make the information of where water is accessible.
Got it. Okay.
Via iPhone, Android, other applications. And essentially then create a payment system where water on our marketplace is basically free, or literally an ad-supported model. Yep. And all the other types of beverages that you can buy, from coffee to tea, kombucha to wine to beer to CBD water, are available on a per ounce basis, just like you'd buy anything else at the supermarket. At the other side is the bottle carrying users. To do that, we kickstarted it by creating a movement called Drink Different. Mm-hmm. Inspired.
Which I participated in. I still am participating.
Thank you.
But yeah, you challenged me to drink different and not to use single-use plastic water bottles probably about like 2.5, 3 months ago. And I have been really good. It's been I have not used them once in the States. When I went to Mexico, it was a little bit more challenging because I was more hypersensitive there to not drink any tap water. And sometimes I'd go to a restaurant, the only clean water they had was in a bottle. So at that point I was like, shit, what do I do?
We're working on that.
Yeah, right.
To hit on the point to go back to the point about finding it, verifying if it's clean or not is a huge part of step 2 of the technological side.
Right.
So that when you go to Mexico, you can drink the water because there's a smart filter, there's a filtration system, there's a clean water ATM, and now you don't have to buy the bottle, you just have to carry your own cup.
Sure. And I can imagine as well that stores, if they want to attract people in with the water, they can have alkaline water and different types of water that they use and market to attract people into their stores. And that's what might be a driver over, a Uber driver choosing your restaurant or store to attract people into versus another one.
You got it exactly. So on the Drink Different movement, what we realized is we have to inspire people to carry their own cup. And so many people today carry cups. Mothers carry cups. Mobile economy workers, from Uber drivers to UPS drivers, mostly people who are in delivery vehicles. WAG dog walkers carry water with them. Students carry bottles all the time. So we create this social movement called Drink Different, which is, if we're going to save the planet, we have to think different and then make a choice to drink different. And it was to go 30 days without drinking out of single-use plastic water bottle. And we used every resource we could get to kind of share that message, and ultimately realized the best resource was word of mouth. We realized we could ask our friends to share the message if it resonated with them. I hired great people, including Caitlin Turner, you've had on this show, to build a movement, to build a campaign that says, we're not drinking out of single-use plastic bottles anymore, or for 30 days, because once you make a good habit in 30 days, you really can't unsee that. Inspire people that we actually can save the planet. We can actually change the beverage business. We can get better options for ourselves. We can get free water for all. All we literally have to do is make a daily choice to carry our bottle and say, as best we can, no to the plastic.
I want to ask a question, because obviously I think we are making the changes happening, and I know legislation is almost in a way not going to give people a choice. Because single-use plastic water bottles, I think, will go away. But what would you tell someone who's just like, not motivated or doesn't think that they personally can make a difference?
I'd tell them to start as small a step as possible. I would literally say to them, go to the toilet, flush it, and say thank you. Because if they don't believe that they can make a small little change in their life and make a difference in the whole world, then they're not grateful enough. Because if you believe you can make a difference, you can make a difference. Because this is a very special world we live in. I'm very grateful to live in it. And the smallest things I don't think can be taken for granted. And I think we are at a time where people need to be told, we're a little ungrateful for all of the amazing abundance that we have in this world. And I'm saying in particular myself in Los Angeles. But I think what I would say to them, to take it a step further, is like, no, you carrying your bottle, you can make a difference. The politicians follow us, we the people. They are to serve us. Beverage companies, they are to serve their customers. If everyone walked into McDonald's in a single day, to every McDonald's across the world, and said, we want a plant-based vegan burger or we're leaving, they would serve Impossible Burgers tomorrow. They don't want to go out of business, but they don't want to make changes. They're scared of making changes that would hurt their business or ruin their base. So if you want to eat Impossible Burger, like, I look forward to the day when I can eat at McDonald's again, which I loved as a kid. I love to eat a vegan burger at McDonald's. I have nothing wrong with the facilities, with, where the location. They got more locations than anyone. I don't want to eat the food. Nothing wrong with the building of the location. So as soon as they start carrying, and I think the same way that Walmart literally had almond milk. So I would say is like, if you don't start by this action by doing it yourself, it'll never exist.
To me, I look at it in two different ways. I think one way that I look at it is there's legitimate risks and consequences to this plastic water bottle kind of epidemic when you look at all the pictures in the oceans and the fact that a lot of these plastic, they're not recyclable. You know, it takes hundreds and hundreds of years for them to combust, whatever. I think is scary. And then on the flip side, I think that when we make subtle mindset shifts, saying like, all right, I want to live in a world that has a sustainable planet, that even if it starts as small as just making that one choice, that I'm not going to use plastic water bottles or I'm not going to eat meat, it empowers me to think bigger. It empowers me to take greater action for the causes that I believe in, you know, starting with something small. So when I look at it from both perspectives, it really becomes a no-brainer to me. And it reminds me who I am and what I stand for every single time I'm at a place when someone either hands me a plastic water bottle and I respectfully decline, that it reminds me of what I stand for and that I am a person of conviction and that I can and am creating change.
I think why I love this podcast is we present very different viewpoints. Yeah. I agree with you. Yeah. And I think both messages really need to be heard. Yeah. Because there's different groups of people. Yeah. Yeah. I met someone out at a party once and he was so well aware of the plastic epidemic, didn't care. And I had to look him in the eye and say, respectfully, I think you're very selfish. Some people need to be told in this world, respectfully, I think you're acting very selfishly. Yeah. And the nonviolent, passive, way of doing that is actually what you said, carrying your own bottle, politely refusing their plastic. It's not shaming other people.
Right. Sure.
Some people need to hear it, but for most people, it's not a message of shame. Yeah. It's just a matter of like quietly doing the right thing. And I think it's as little as making the choice to carry a cup, to refuse a plastic, buy coconut water in an aluminum or glass can as opposed to a plastic container. Right. It's the simple choice. Yeah. That's all it is.
Well said. I wanted to ask you a couple of colorful questions as we kind of enter into the last part of this interview. So one question that I have for you, I read that you were really inspired when you went to the Thomas Edison Museum as a kid because he had so many different inventions. Yeah. And as someone who I can totally relate, there's so many things that I want to do in this lifetime. There's so many causes that I believe in. There's, so many different careers that I want to dip my toe in. I'm curious to know how you manage and juggle all of those.
So we went there as school kids, and I liked that he had a laboratory. It was like a really cool garage, but it was a lab. And he was a tinkerer and experimented with things. And I don't know the full story, and I was very young, or his full story rather. But the idea that progress is incremental and small and subtle and tangible rather than Herculean and is what stuck with me. When I build a company and get involved in a project, I try to live the brand, a friend once said to me. So with MakeSpace, I'm a minimalist. I don't own many things. It was about being able to move freely between cities, not owning a lot, not holding on to clothes that are unnecessary, and even potentially renting things from other people in the network. So MakeSpace was a containerized logistics system, has these green pods that I envision one day go on the back of a self-driving truck and zip away. And I think naturally through the progression of my journey from MakeSpace here, really for me, and this was actually, really driven a lot by the partners that I had at MakeSpace, from the now current CEO, who's my former, or is my business partner, but my co-founder. He was the head of ops, third employee at the company. And the board that's there was that I had no involvement at all. And that was one of the hardest things to sit through. Mm-hmm. And there are still great business ideas that I have for MakeSpace that all the time I'm like, I want to reach, but I realize it's not my company anymore. I'm a huge shareholder, but it's not my vision anymore. That's hard to sit with because there's so many things I still think I could do, but it's not mine. So by anymore. And that's a weird thing for an entrepreneur to go through.
Right.
But what it's
like sending your kid off to college.
Yeah. And then being like, I don't like that fraternity that you joined. Tap is my full focus, other than my nonprofit work in fundraising and evangelizing the gift of life message and trying to raise awareness as much as I can. Not really personally angel investing at the moment for the same reasons as like I'm really focused on that, but I see where those opportunities are coming. And with Tap, I did something similarly where I rented a house. That's our laboratory. And we're going to start tinkering on it. Figuring out how to connect our utility bill to an app that measures how much water comes out of our taps starts to help me understand water consumption in my house.
Yeah.
I want to use our home, our office, and on the go as little laboratories for what I think a zero waste future looks like. When we, again, going to Burning Man inspired me because I didn't have much stuff. I rolled in with some clothes and a bottle and some pre-purchased food items and shelter. But then I was on my own. And I had to carry my cup and my utensils and my plate and I saw what a world can look like with the constraint of zero waste. And that stuck with me so much in the same way that Elon's working on zero emissions. I believe my purpose here is to help us move psychologically with a small incremental change to a zero waste future.
That's beautiful. So what I'm hearing you say, and kind of in regards to that question of being someone who is an innovator, who constantly wants to innovate, is finding a focus that you find so passionate about and diving fully into it, and knowing when to pass it off and when to let it go, as well as continuing to follow the passion.
That's spot on.
All right. Nice. Love it. The next question that I want to ask you is about synchronicity. And the reason why I wanted to ask you in particular this question is how often we run into each other. So we met probably less than a year ago. We met at your house at a dinner party. I believe it was last summer when David Denberg, who's also been on the show, shout out David, had a dinner party. And I've seen you more than any other person in the most synchronistic ways, whether like around Venice, random dinner parties, at Burning Man. I know we run in the same social circle, but I still see you the most. So I'm curious to hear what your take is on synchronicity.
Frequency.
Frequency.
I think we are energy. We are molecules vibrating, and those vibrations emit a frequency or a vibe. I know it's like overplayed in LA to be like vibes, but it's like there's a feeling, there's a vibe. It's not a surprise that we literally live like 2 blocks from each other, right? And that's not coincidence either. There's a vibe, there's a frequency, there's an energy, there's a feeling that you feel sitting next to me and I feel sitting next to you right now. It's probably one of ease, and you're not uncomfortable, and you're actually allowed to what I call drop in. And that drop in is to live in the present moment because it truly is a gift from God. And to sit there, that's why it's called the present, right? To sit there and say, I'm exactly where I'm meant to be at this time. So I think the synchronicity of us running into each other, it's more how we feel when we run into each other. It's because I'm truly connected and present when I see you. And I look forward to seeing you again. That frequency means what I think you then also find yourself as you go out into the world, not just at your home. You might like similar bars or restaurants or coffee shops or people or other events that other people are going to because your quote vibe attracts your tribe. And what I'm saying is like, I think when you start to recognize other beings of a high vibration that feel a certain way and there's a certain energy, you find yourself in those similar situations. Your friend group, I think, naturally whittles down in time to probably 10 to 20 people who are very similar to you. And what's cool about, I think, our relationship and how we've met is like, I was told before I met you that I'd be friends with you because people who were friends of yours, like Caitlin and David,
Sure,
know how they feel around you. They know how they feel around me. And then they say, oh, I think you'll vibe. I think you'll like each other.
Missions.
And that's where I think that, so the synchronicity for me is like totally also reminds me that I'm on my path.
Yeah.
Because even though I don't know you for a long period of time, I certainly feel like I know you better than some of my college friends in a way. I still got a lot of layers of the onion to peel back, but much more in depth, you know? So I see it as the synchronicity of when one is on their path in that radically self-reliant way, you start to attract other people in your life who are also on a similar path in a very healthy way, and find deep, meaningful friendships, find deep personal relationships, etc.
Dude, so beautifully said. Well, I have one more colorful question that I wanted to ask you before we wrap up this interview here. And since you're a true innovator that has a beautiful, positive, kind of loving, united, sustainable vision for the world, I'm curious, what is your vision for the world, and what do you see your role in it being?
I think we're on the brink of world peace. Mother Nature is declaring war against all of us. And there's two choices. We fight together or fight against one another. We've been fighting against one another for thousands of years. We won't beat Mother Nature. So it's time to fight together.
Mic drop right there. That's so beautiful. And you're doing your part with TAP, and I'm sure whatever continues to evolve and unfold as that mission continues to develop. As we wrap up the show here, Samuel, what can we do to support you?
The number one way that anyone can support my biggest passion right now is carry their water bottle. Take a picture if they so wish and share it, and take the Drink Different pledge. To go to the @FindTap Instagram and look more about what we're doing. Send a news post to a friend. Like a photo. Share the positive news of something good happening in the world. Share this podcast with 3 people who want sustainability to be something that they are working on or hope to have financial outcomes from, and know that like another person with big ideas is also working in this space. Like, give someone hope that sustainability matters. Because so many in the sustainability world, it's been said as like social impact, like it's for good, but it's not sustainable because it doesn't make money. Things have gotten so bad that that's not true anymore. And like I said, anyone who's listening can help by making the smallest change in their life. With us is just carrying a bottle and refusing plastic water bottles for 30 days, let alone the fact that it's like not good for them. All the other, like the bad news stuff out there, it feels good. It selfishly feels good every day to feel like I'm doing something good for the world. I like how I feel in the morning, and it's self-reinforcing. It's made me see other positive impacts. So it's not just about like, I feel like this movement and this revolution is not just about helping someone else. It's the ability to help yourself, and that will help others as well.
Samuel, thank you so much for coming on the show. I wanted to invite you just to leave us with some closing words of wisdom. Maybe it's something you thought about when you were walking over here from down the street, but what final words of wisdom, advice do you have for listeners of Are You Being Real to live the most authentic, bold, fulfilling life?
When I was at my darkest moments in my life, and I believed so many just untrue things about myself, I was told some of those things by other people. I wrote down a list. I am X, I am Y, I am Z. And I went to my mirror in the bathroom and I read it to myself over and over and over again. You can make the change. You can look yourself in the mirror and everything someone told you you weren't, you can tell yourself what you are. And that's all it took for me.
Thank you for being who you are. The one and only Samuel Ian Rosen. This has been such a treat. You're welcome back here anytime. Thanks for bringing it, being so bold and real and inspiring, and a change maker.